Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to my channel, True Crime with Jess Rose. Thank you for joining me again. I've been asked a couple of times to do this next story and kind of avoided it. The child victim stories, and I have done a couple, they are really hard. They're really hard to do. But at the same time, the past couple of stories I've done have been where the child is the perpetrator. Also difficult, also really difficult. So what's made me do this story tonight is I've worked out that anyone 26 and younger possibly wouldn't have even heard of this one, and because it is so shocking and so kind of upsetting, I can't believe it, it hasn't been heard of by some people, and I think that's a real shame because it was so bad. So I have decided to do it, and this crime, well, the show it's taken from where I've watched it is Crimes That Shook Britain, but it has appeared on quite a few other shows, which I'll tell you at the end if you do want to watch them yourself. And it's the story of James Bulger, and if you know the story, you'll understand why I'm kind of, a bit about doing it, because it is such a sad story. But in this one, obviously the victim is a child, but the perpetrators are children as well. That's what made this so shocking. And we go back to Friday, the 12th of Feb, 1993. And Denise Bulger, her son James, who's 2, and her friends all go shopping. Now, they live in Liverpool. And they go to a shopping centre called the Strand in Bootle. And Denise goes there because it's all indoors, and we have got them in Birmingham, them kind of shopping centres. And you do get a kind of, they do seem quite safe because it's all indoors. And, she goes in there with James and they do a bit of shopping with her friends as well. And she goes to the butcher's, Denise does. And while she's, much like any one of us would do, and while she's sorting out a change, she takes her eyes off James just for 2 seconds. It genuinely was seconds, and while she's looking in her purse, and when she looks back down again, he's not there. And of course, look, anyone would do, she runs out, looking for him, finds a friend. They start searching nearby shops, alert the security within there. They do a routine call out, the staff do. No one was expecting he was taken at all. That wasn't in anybody's mind. What they thought was possibly he'd got locked in a store cupboard, or he was hiding somewhere, or their worst case scenario was that he'd got out of the Strand and there's a very busy road nearby. So that was their line of thinking. But after a little while, and only a short while, they phone the police. Denise is beside herself. They get Merseyside Police involved, and they look everywhere. They look absolutely everywhere for this little boy, and there's no sign of him. And hours start to pass. Now, I just can't imagine. I can't how she felt, but that fear in her. 1 minute he was there, and the next minute he's gone. So the officers, because he was so young, he's only 2, he's just, I think, short of his 3rd birthday. He's ever such a cute little boy, really, really cute little boy. And everyone's worried now, everyone's worried because he is so young. So the police start searching, widen the search a bit from just outside the Strand. They're searching canals. It's quite an industrial area, so they're searching all these different industrial sites. Denise is taken to Marsh Lane Police Station, and she said that at one point they brought in some little shoes for her to look at, and she was like, no, they're not James's. And she said, she was so relieved, because at first it was like, oh my God, but it wasn't. And they're questioning people, and the hours go on, the hours pass into the next day, and it's Saturday. So 24 hours he's been missing now. And the police get CCTV footage of the Strand at that particular time, and it's so sad because you see James come out of the butcher's, you see him toddle out, and you see him walking off with 2 boys. There's also footage of when Denise come running out, so that's what I said, it was literally seconds, and she goes the other way. So although it was poor quality camera, it's 1993, so the camera's not great, you know, the quality's not great, but Denise confirms it's James. She confirms it to him. She said she knew. Denise does appear on the show, and such a brave lady, and she confirmed that that's definitely James, and she said it was a relief because on the camera it looked like 2 children, you know, young lads, and she said it was actually a relief because in her mind she believed, you know, they were passing him off as a little brother or something, or keeping him in a shed feeding sweets. There was nothing sinister that came to her mind at all, but the police bring her in for a press conference, you know, to bring these lads forward, because on the camera the police judged the 2 boys to be between 14 and 18. So they do a press conference, and it is very upsetting, the press conference. You know, if you do watch the programmes, you see it, and your heart just breaks for it. It genuinely does. So they're appealing for these 2 boys to come forward. But 48 hours later, now, on Sunday, the 14th of February, some children come across James's body on a train track. Now, it's said that them children, because it wasn't an adult that found him, it was kids playing, just as kids do, you know, and it's said that they'll probably never ever forget what they saw. And little James had been placed on a railway track, and he'd been decapitated by the train. So Denise had said from that point, you know, at that point, that's all she knew. She just lived under a black cloud. She didn't want to hear anything. She didn't want to hear from anyone. She just locked herself away. And James was actually found, the railway track was actually 3 miles from the Strand. And this railway track is actually opposite Walton Lane police station. So the railway track can actually be seen from the police station. James actually had the most horrific injuries. Those details have never been released. I think even the detective who was there and, you know, worked on the James case there and seen him, even he hasn't told. Look, there's also a programme out there, because in the eyes of the detective, and he didn't even tell his wife what he saw that day because it was so devastating. So James's injuries have never actually been released. You know, little bits, you know, that were given to explain, you know, sort of what happened, but no great details, which I think I'm glad. I wouldn't like to hear it. So the world's press have now descended on Liverpool. You know, the police still believe they're looking for 2 14 to 18-year-old boys based on the footage. But less than a week later, a boy's name comes forward. Someone phones and says that the police had to release certain details about what had happened to James, like very small details, like there was paint found on him, and just to kind of bring people forward, and it worked. They got a phone call to say there was a boy called John Venables who had this paint on his shoes when he got home on the Friday. Don't forget, it's only been a week. So they get 2 names, Robert Thompson and John Venables. But the police are so shocked because these boys are 10. They're 10 years old. And nobody wants to believe, even though these names have come forward. One of the policemen says, you know, even if that, you know, it was them walking out the shopping centre, he wanted to believe that they'd left him and then he'd come to harm from an adult because of what had been done to him. And he actually, one of the detectives who went to see Robert Thompson, he said he actually had to kneel down. He was that short. You know, these were short 10-year-olds, and he had to kneel down to talk to him. But what he said about Robert Thompson is he started crying when he realised what he was being called in for, but there was no tears. This is a 10-year-old child, and this detective was quite taken back by, you know, the kind of dismissiveness of this child. Well, John and Robert are both taken to separate police stations, and they're both chopping and changing their stories. You know, because they're on CCTV, they say, well, yeah, we did take James, but we left him at the canal. Then when, say, John would come forward with a bit more, Robert would be like, well, okay, we were there, but then we left him. You know, and this kept going. And the solicitor for John Venables, he said he knew on the second day because he'd gone and watched the CCTV, and on there, the lad who's holding James's hand has got a mustard colour coat on. And he goes in the next day when he's questioning John, and he says, what colour's your coat? And he goes, it's mustard. And the solicitor said his heart sank from then, because he knew this was going to be a horrific case for him to try and defend. So with Thompson, which is Robert Thompson, now, if you see the pictures of these two boys, you've got Robert Thompson, who, he looks cute. It cripples, like, it gets caught in my throat to say it, but he looks cute. Then you've got John Venables, who, I remember this case, and I remember asking, was it him that led Robert? Because I don't know, there was something about how John Venables looked, but no, Robert Thompson was, they said he was so cold, he was so calculating, he was so cunning. He was 10, and this is what came back, like their feelings on this lad. But what they did notice is that when he was asked an awkward question, like, so you're walking James up the hill to the railway track, he'd start shuffling his feet when it got uncomfortable and he was having to admit something. That's the only way he gave any sort of feeling towards what was coming out. In the end, John breaks, and I think he told his mum first when there was no one in the room, and then he tells the solicitor and the police, and he admits that they did kill James. And he says something like, please tell his mum I'm sorry. No, sorry. You know, Robert then, once he realises bang to rights, tries to blame it all on John. You know, it was all him, I didn't have nothing to do with it. Oh, okay, I did this, but then I left. Tried to say he left John with James. He's 10. This kind of manipulation and lying, and it's just, it's hard to comprehend. Both kids were charged, and it starts to come out what happened when they took James from the Strand, and they basically just dragged him through the streets, like just dragging him along. James was actually seen in the 3 miles they walked in. It was 3 miles from the Strand to that railway. He was 2. Imagine that distance for a 2-year-old. And he's been dragged through the streets. He's been hit on the way. 38 people came forward as witnesses to seeing the 3 between those 2 places. I also can't imagine how them people, even now, 26 years later, must feel. You know, could they have done more? Could they have said something? Could they have? I don't know, but You know, James had bruises on him. So people were asking, you know, what's wrong with him, because he was crying, he was asking for his mum, which is heartbreaking. And they had ready-made excuses. You know, oh, he's our brother, he's fell over, we're taking him home, we're taking him to see his mum, we're taking him to the police station. You know, and unfortunately, 38 people that believed this story. I mean, I'm not saying all 38 spoke to them, but, you know, there was 38 people that witnessed it. And like I say, the injuries to James were unspeakable injuries, you know, and the details have never been released. They're too disturbing. But what they tried to do after they've done what they've done to him, they lay him across the train tracks to try and cover their work. And like I say, he's decapitated. But what they didn't bank on was that even in 1993, now, I don't think they needed technology, to be honest. It was apparent what had happened to this poor little boy. And even Denise found it so hard to believe that this had happened, not only to, obviously, to her baby, but done by 10-year-old boys. It was unheard of. You know, I think the youngest one to them was Mary Bell, you know, going back a very long time. You know, this was unheard of. So, of course, there's a public outcry now. People are out for blood, 10-year-old or not. You know, you see footage of outside the court when they were first brought in, and, you know, they're trying to get at the vans. You know, people are angry. This is just devastating, not only to Liverpool, but to the world that heard about it. This poor little boy and his poor mum, who looked away for a second, you know, to get change out of her purse. So the trial's set for later that year, and being a big case, you know, John Venables' solicitor does say it was like a circus. You know, people were queuing up outside to get in for this trial of the century. Because John and Robert were so small, they had to raise the dock by 18 inches just so they could see over the top. But this was done at the Crown Court because in Great Britain, you know, from age 10, you are responsible for your actions. It is seen you know right from wrong. So they were tried as adults. And it was heard that on the day, on the 12th of February, it was during the half term. And John, who I don't think, from what I've heard, was, I don't want to say he wasn't a bad kid, but it certainly wasn't expected. It certainly wasn't something anyone would have ever seen him doing. And he'd been trusted with the school gerbils. And I'm thinking, because he was on the way to school, hasn't been mentioned, but he's probably going to feed them or something. But he bumps into Robert, and Robert completely puts him off that idea of going to school and, you know, feeding these gerbils. He says, let's go robbing. Now, Robert, different kettle of fish, you know, had a very rough upbringing. I believe he had certain members of the family in prison, you know, very streetwise. And, you know, yeah, let's go robbing. But they get bored of that. They're in the Strand, prattling about, and they get bored. And Robert says, let's take a kid. They're 10. Not only the one suggesting it, but the one, okay, let's do that. So that's how it came about. And, you know, it comes to be that they seen James soon after that decision was made. And, you know, the rest is tragically history. And it was proved that they both knew right from wrong. You know, psychologists had to, you know, they had to be, you know, seen by a lot of different people. And it was proved that they did know what they're doing. And the trial lasted 17 days. Denise admits that she couldn't go for the trial. She only went for the verdict, and that she did try and see them and look at them. And she says the minute she did see them, she knew they were capable, because remember me saying even she couldn't get her head around it, but she said the minute she seen them, she knew they'd done what they'd done. And so when she was there looking at them, she said she could actually see, because she was looking at the, she's seen like from the side of the back, and she could see them sniggering in their own, verdict, the end of the trial. They were both found guilty, of course. John Venables cried, there and then. And again, the detective says that Robert Thompson, when he caught his eye, glared at him. Robert Thompson glared at the detective, and only when he seen John Venables breaking down and crying, he started crying. Again, no tears. This lad, no, it doesn't make sense. It's hard to try and comprehend in your own head. But the judge makes kind of a monumental decision, really. He releases their names, because up until that point, they'd been known as Boy A and Boy B. He releases their names to the public. And John's solicitor does say he didn't agree with it. He didn't agree with it, not because of the, he didn't want the names and shamed. He says it was no defence for John, that way he wasn't trying to save John's feelings. It was more the cost to the taxpayer that this was going to incur, and the repercussions of releasing their names. But at that point, Denise had been told, they would serve a good, a lot of time for what they did to her son. And they were given 8 years at that point, which means they would never serve any true time in an adult prison, because, of course, they'd be 18 when they were eligible for release. So the Lord Chief Justice does extend it to 10 years. And it's still nothing. It's still nothing. They'll be 20. And Denise and her husband, Ralph, they get a petition started. And I think the Sun newspaper was involved in it. And a petition comes, and I think they get the 100,000 signatures. And they take it to Parliament. And Michael Howard actually increases it through public pressure. This isn't right, this 10 years. He increased it to 15 years. And Denise says, that's what you would get. That's a life term. They would at least serve some time in an adult prison. She said she'd have learned to live with that. No amount of time is going to bring James back, none. But she says at least they'd have served a full life term. But the European Court didn't agree with it. They said it had been unlawful, how the trial had been taken, come about. They didn't agree. The European Court, and it said on the show that countries in Eastern Europe should never have had a final say on the legal system here. How could they say? Because every country has different ages of when you know right from wrong, different ages of when you can be seen to be fully capable of committing a murder. Some are up to 15. You're not liable until you're 15, kind of thing. But here it's 10, and what they did quite rightfully. It'd be scary to think if it had been 12, they wouldn't have even had a trial. So Denise is starting to get drip-fed bits of information, because John and Robert are sent to, they're kind of sent, not quite a care home, but it's a place where they're entitled to full education, more one-to-one education. She's hearing that they're kind of been rewarded. They've got lovely bedrooms, they've got video games, they get to go shopping, they're buying designer clothes. Stuff that, she said parents who work, a two-working family can't afford to do that for their kids and can't afford to buy those kind of things for their kids. And these have been given to these lads. And she just said that's what was really hurting. They wasn't being punished. They wasn't being punished for what they'd done. So in 1999, they're 16 now, the European Court said that it had been unfair. It had been unfair the way they'd been tried. It was too strict, apparently. So they reduced the time back to 8 years. And that's all they did. That's all they did. The top lord in our country actually said they were model pupils and they were entitled to be returned to society. When Denise and other people knew, through being, again, drip-fed information, that Thompson hadn't changed at all. He was still very violent. He was still, treated it all as a joke, didn't take it seriously, no remorse whatsoever. John Venables, actually, I think he was 14 at the time, 15. So it wasn't when he was due to be released, but it was found out he'd had sex with a member of staff, a female member of staff. Yeah, and they get parole. They get parole. They only do the 8 years, and they're released. They're released into society in 2001, and it's actually at a taxpayer cost of £250,000 for each of them, because they had to have a new identity. They obviously had to have a place to stay. During the 8 years, they've been taught and, shown how to lie about their previous life and, learn the new life that had been invented for them. But Denise was assured that if either one got into any further trouble, I mean, obviously they weren't allowed in Liverpool, they weren't allowed near Denise. That was, part of their release. And the rules, they weren't allowed to get in contact with her or any member of her family. And she was told that if either one committed a crime, any crime, she'd be let know. In 2010, so 9 years later, at 27, John Venables is arrested. Not Robert Thompson, funny enough, John Venables. And Jack Straw actually tries to blanket the press into basically finding out the reasons why. So the press make up their own reasons. I don't remember that, but that's what it said on the show. They start speculating as to what it could be. And he has to release the details to stop this happening. And it turns out that the police had gone to scene. I think it was for a petty offence, to be honest, and they went to his flat. And when he opened the door, he ran to his computer and tried to destroy his computer. So they got hold of it. And it was full of child porn. Images, they had to find that. And it had always been wondered about Jack. Now, James was found naked from the waist down. And it was always wondered, was there a sexual motive behind it? Which, up until then, it had never really been looked into or anything. But because of this, it's still speculated, was there a sexual motive behind part of the attack, at least. And Denise finds out this is the third time John Venables has been arrested. Now, she was supposed to be told as soon as he was. This is the third time, and she finds out about it, which is disgraceful. But Venables really wasn't keeping his end of the bargain. He was telling people who he was. Denise found out he was going to Everton matches, and she said, although she's not an Everton supporter, she had family who were, they're all in a close vicinity. She actually said, her family could have met him. They could have met in a pub. She could have nieces that could have brought him home, and no one would know, because you wouldn't know what he looked like. He was a child. That's a lot of change going on over the years. And, that scared the life out of her. And so it was shown that he had 50 indecent images on his computer, and he got 2 years. He doesn't learn. In February 2018, he's caught again and jailed for 3.5 years. This time he's gone further. He's got a paedophile manual now that he's sharing with other paedophiles. What are they waiting for? They already know what he was capable of at 10. He's giving them a step-by-step of where he's moved on to, and he gets 3.5 years. Possibly be out in 2.5. What are they waiting for? So I'm very confused. I don't get that. I don't understand that. I can't shed any more light on that. I don't get that at all. You know, maybe you do. Maybe you think maybe he can change. I don't know how you can change in a prison. You know, I'm at a loss. I'm at a loss. But experts, although we haven't heard from Robert Thompson, experts have come forward and said they don't believe we've heard the last of him, because, as I said throughout the whole video, he was kind of the one behind it. So it said, and he was the cold one, he was the cunning one at 10. You know, has he been up to things and we just haven't found out yet? He's just, you know, quite clever. I mean, they're 35 now, 36. I don't know, but experts say, and I've seen it on a few shows, they don't believe that we've heard the last of Robert Thompson. It would be lovely to believe that lovely is not the right word. You know, you can't forget what he did. You can't. Even all these years later, 26 years later, you can't forget. He should never be able to forget what he did, 10 or not. That's my opinion. I do feel quite strongly on that. I don't know how you feel, you know, whether you believe that maybe the rehabilitation process worked. I don't know. I don't. But you can, like I say, watch the full episodes of this story, and it's on quite a few shows. Like the bit I've done tonight is from Crimes That Shook Britain, but there's also Unforgiven, The Boys That Killed James Bulger. There's James Bulger, the one I mentioned earlier, Eyes of a Detective, very interesting. And then you've got James Bulger and Mother's Story, and that's from Denise Bulger's point of view. I think she's called Denise Fergus now, and that's very sad, but it's amazing to watch this woman. It really is. She's just come, and she can still help. She's still trying to help children, and you know, she's making sure James is never forgotten. And that's kind of why I wanted to do this video, because I was surprised at the amount of people who hadn't heard about this story. And like Denise said, if it makes you hold on to your child's hand that little bit tighter, then it's worth people continuing to talk about this story, because she looked away for a couple of seconds and her life changed forever. You know, it's a really, really sad story. And thank you for listening to it with me. And if you've got any views on it, you know, like I say, whether you felt the boys were right in only receiving the 8 years, you know, whether, like me, you believe that the rehabilitation, well, don't believe in the rehabilitation of kids like this, I don't know. But yeah, you can let me know in the comments below. I'll put a link in, and yeah, if you'd like to subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. And I'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Thank you. I am going. I'm still here again, aren't I? Sorry.